Okay, oops. Technical difficulties. There was a break in that transmission, folks. Sorry about that. Just in the throes of things. And welcome back. Hopefully everybody will be able to pick back up on here. Just as we're going through. Nice to see you, John. Just had a little bit of a hiccup in the connection here. Dropped off connection. So we are in the middle of talking about references, and I was just talking about the first section, which is about inspiration. Okay, inspirational books. I'm going to carry on. 3 topics we're covering off. 3 topics. We're talking about inspiration, techniques, and accuracy. I'm just sort of sharing a few thoughts as they come in. Hello, Phil. How you going, mate? Jose, Ola, and Alan. Nice to see you. Welcome back. And sorry about that, folks. Connection dropped out, and we've got to start back again onto it. Righto, so where were we? I was just sharing some thoughts on the importance of, in the library, the importance of inspiration. So we talked about military model showcase, went through that, very powerful, and just full of eye candy, as we call it. Eye candy being figures that inspire you to have a go. So that's one form of inspiration. I think the other form of inspiration has to be this little guy. You know, you'll know I'm focused on World War I, and that's the area that I'm particularly interested in at the moment. However, that sort of genre, World War I, World War II, the sort of modern stuff, I did have a long stint with medieval and Roman. And in recent times, I've sort of changed tack. It's partly because of this sort of thing, Charlie's War. Charlie's was inspirational at the time. I don't know if you know, Pat Mills was the author, and Joe Calhoun was the artist. Now, Joe's sadly not around, but Pat certainly is. And this is absolutely over the moon when these 3 books were released. So they're the collected works of Pat and Joe on the comic series called Charlie's War. And I know this is the inspiration behind the likes of Marcus White and particularly Darren. We've got Tommy's War nowadays as a direct result, I think, of Charlie's War, which was an amazing comic strip. If you look at the detail on these plates, it's just incredible what Pat and Joe put together in this. The sort of empathy for the common soldier, the anti-war scene. And I don't know, but some of you might even be familiar with that particular image, which was being done in miniature, but the other way around, with a Tommy's Lancer on and the German soldier running from it. So just so full of reference material, so full of inspiration. And even a little nod here to Sponsor's product. Let's have a quick look there. Wingnut Wings, the Brisfit. And that's certainly a a lot of memories from that. And this image is just quite incredible. For those that have got that Wingnut Wings Bristol Fighter, you've got to be there. Last time I was with my mate from Wingnut Wings, he had a copy of Charlie's War with this particular book in his car. Now, talked about inspiration. You've got the inspirational figures, why we and who and how we get interested in it. And then these other forms of inspiration coming from things like Charlie's War. Now, if you're doing First World War aircraft, if you're doing First World War, you couldn't go past Charlie's War. In fact, I don't think there's another comic or another illustration that would be a deeper sense of inspiration reference that anyone could have. And in this particular one, we've actually got the cover shots coming through. Some colour plates that were actually printed, and this was an amazing reprint, the book coming out. And you can see the art here, and I know Marcus White's done a few of these in miniature. They're just incredible illustrations. And the accuracy, even the colour of the helmets in terms of these, that sort of apple green, it's what I'll be trying on Uncle later on. So that was Charlie's War, and that was the section just around references and inspiration. Okay, if you just joined us, I did a little bit of preamble. We're talking about references, and if you're on the part 1, just before the technical difficulties failed us, this is a continuation of that section. Good to see you, Robin. And neat to have you back, Phil. Sorry about the drop off there, mate. And nice to have you on board, Jay. Okay, in terms of those references, we're now moving on from inspiration to what I call technique books. And I've got two here. Ding. Okay. Two of the modern era, I think. One's a little bit harder to get hold of. The other one is freely available. We'll spend a little bit more time talking about Mr. Black in a second. And what I want to do is just give you a flavour of some of the most amazingly laid out reference material that you can get nowadays to teach you techniques. Okay. So MJ, Manjin Kim, is a Korean modeler, South Korean modeler, been around a few years, who has done all sorts of things. And I was lucky to do a little bit of work with him when he was working for Sail Miniatures, SEIL, back in the day. They made a bit of a storm in the 2000s into the early part of this decade. And Manjin was a young figure artist that worked with them and also spent some time in China working through. As part of that experience, he created this book, and it's probably a go-to for me in terms of getting introduced into figure modelling. I'm myself working on a book at the moment, and this is the one that sort of gives me some inspiration as well as the sense of technique layout. So what's really cool about this one that I really liked is the sense that MJ thought it through, and what he actually did is he broke it down into sections that covered off beginners and advanced modelers, full of product and just an introduction on the bits and pieces that you need to put together. And then he, even with this one, it came in an amazing presentation box with a figure, and it actually worked through how you could actually put that figure together. So the figure on the cover, it's as it says in the box, figure on the cover, you take it, you use that to develop your skills. Dual language, incredible work and production values around that. The detail that this goes into. And then, oops, got some problems with the connection, so sorry about that dropping out there, team. A little bit of text, but mostly articles. So the first section, the orange section, is around beginners. This section around intermediate is a mid-range modeler. What's quite amazing is he actually prepares both figures in both styles. I think it's an incredible way of doing things. Lovely section on basing. And you can see the quality of photos with explanatory text. Now the book I'm putting together, I've got to have 250 odd photos and captions for all of them. So this is, really is the sort of stuff that I'm looking for to guide me, how the text and the photos can complement each other in terms of putting it together. An incredible book, without a doubt, a fabulous one. If you've got it, you've done well. If you haven't, I think you're out of luck. Well out of production now, and pretty rare to get a hold of. You can sort of see that detail coming through. One topic, one figure, all the way through, from getting it out of the pack, cleaning it up, right through to completing it for display. And there's that little beginner section that he does on a much simpler process, key recommendations. Now this ain't a book that's just for it. For that, he's also got some colour charts in there on the times. He's got websites. That's the version for a basic modeler. And I think everybody would be keen on just finishing a figure to that sort of standard. An incredible book and a classic in terms of techniques. So just call out there. First one we talked about inspiration. This one's about techniques, and it's purely aimed at getting better figure modeler going. So I think Manjin's done a real credit to both himself and also the hobby by introducing that one. Now let me just flip back. I'm going to say hi to a few people before we get into this next one, and you can sort of see the inspiration. We're going to talk a little bit about Mr. Black, but I do want to say hi to a few people that I might have missed. So let's come back to that. Okay, so let's have a quick scan through. We certainly lost a few people there. I can see most of you come through, and not a lot of questions. Hello Vittorio, good to see you back again. Looks like everybody just about came through. Mark, nice to have you on, mate. Yeah. And hey, Jomo, nice to have you on board, mate. Just talking references this morning. Hey, I really appreciate that conversation that we had last night. I'm hoping I've got your name a little bit better. I've sort of been studying that. And hello to Wojcik. Nice to see you too. Okay, team, so we've been talking about references. I've got another couple that I want to share on to you. And look, let's be honest here. Nobody makes a fortune out of historical figure modeling. One of the reasons, I'm supporting and talking about the products that I'm using, the companies that are part of it, is because they've been really important to me. And without them, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I frankly don't have the time to do sculpting. However, I could be creating my own stuff. Some people do. We saw Mike Good before. He's made a lifetime of creating sculpting. And in the main, we rely upon small business people. And you'll all appreciate that in this COVID time and the coronavirus time, small business people are the ones that are really feeling it tough, apart from those that have actually got the virus and suffered terribly. I think that sort of sense of, so what we can do as figure modelers is actually support those that have gone the extra mile and trying to create the industry, the products that we get the chance to use. A little bit of a pitch, and I think it's critical. Hi Robin, here you go, mate. Nice to see you, man. Trust things are going well for you. I know she's pretty tough over there. And Fet, good to see you come back, mate. We're talking about reference material. And whilst there's a lot of stuff online, I want to talk about a little bit of the hard stuff, the hard copy stuff. So I'm going to go into talk a little bit about a section that I've personally had a long association with, and I really want to thank and do a call out to a friend of mine, Stelios Demirios, who I had the opportunity to spend a day with, literally a day, a few years back, and the sponsorship that he's given me, as well as the opportunity to share the way I approach modelling. Now, the book I'm going to give you is just an example. It's not my work in there, it's other modelers. However, the guys that contribute to it, they all do it out of the love of the love of the hobby, the love of their art, and that's all they do it for. Okay, they want to get it out there, they want to share it with you and for others. So we've got to think about that. And trust me, Stelios is a maths teacher, so he knows numbers, and he knows that he's not going to make a living for him and his family by just doing figure modelling and figure modelling books. So your support's much appreciated, right? So let's just pop back to that. I'm going back to the library on location again, and I'm looking at the second part. I've talked about inspiration, I've talked about techniques, and I'm talking about Scale Model Handbook from Mr. Black's publication. So in this particular, this is number 10, so it's an older issue. Stelios has got a lot of them come through. I've featured in quite a few, including that one with the Ernesto's Viking on the cover. Now, what's incredible is in terms of these processes, you've got some absolute legends behind this, including Ken Jones, the man who probably has single-handedly done more for my interest in military modelling than anybody, as the editor of military modelling over so many years, as well as Stelios, who's the man behind it. But in this one, we've got Pepe, we've got Adrian, Christos, Mike from Greece, Gregorius, Christos, Ernesto, and Sergei out of the Ukraine. All of those guys, masters at what they do. And this one, Christos, love seeing Christos's work, the way he can pull together a face and the artistic style that he's got. Now, every single one of the Mr. Black books has a particular focus. Strong imagery, strong good quality colour imagery, paint lists. Stelios is very important about that because people want to know the colours that you're actually using, and then step-by-step photos. So in some cases, it'll be a full step-by-step that you're seeing, like in this one. You'll see the colour charts that have come through. You'll see the techniques explained. And in others, it's just a profile. It's just again, inspiration. A bit like the Military Model Showcase. So I think this leans on a lot of those early titles in terms of inspiration. Here's one from Pepe. Pepe, Jome, you probably know Pepe, I'm sure. Some of you would have seen it. They're mostly historical subjects in these. There are a few fantasy, and you ain't going to go better off than our mate Sergei and his blood representation. Okay, now I did have a little bit to do with this one, so I helped with the I did help Sergei with the translation in the early stages of this article, so I was pretty stoked. This is a lovely representation. You know, nobody does the representation of blood like Sergei, and the way, the detail, the gritty elements, in a way that's feels authentic without being OTT, for want of a better term. Although some of those shots you can get a sense. Remember, in scale, it's not that graphic, but it's got a lot of detail. And then there's Ernesto, coming out of Venezuela. Man, we've all got to have a bit of a heart for that guy. He's managed to make a living out of being supported by Alpine, Troop 54 at the moment, and doing various commissions. Very strong in terms of his painting. Has featured a lot in Mr. Black, and I think that's been an important part of it. Remember, these guys are doing it for love, and I think we should be grateful for them taking the time to do that. My own articles have either been like this one, which is sort of a profile work by Gregorius. You get a couple of strong images, you get some painting charts, and a little bit of historical notes and a few tips. So I don't think you can go past Mr. Black as an affordable. This is Adrian's work. Adrian, again, has been an inspiration over the years through military modelling. So it's wonderful to sort of see his work coming through. And yeah, certainly the softer side of historical, but there's something for everybody around there. So you'll see the covers of these have changed because Stelios decided to move the contributors onto the front cover. This one finishes off with an amazing fantasy sculpt that is possible. It's old Jules Verne on a sort of steampunk bike. So there's some construction material, some nice hints and tips in there too. So this is all about, and this is from Michael, who's really shaken up the world in terms of his creativity. Michael Contratos, and I think this is probably one of his early ones where he started coming through, but the story behind this, the concept and the design of what he actually came up with, just amazing stuff. So remember, that was all about techniques. So the power of references to provide techniques. I don't think you can beat these things in terms of getting your sense to sit down, study others, look at what they're doing, get some reference material that actually helps you understand what you're trying to achieve and shows those that know how they're doing it. Okay, so that's that section. Now the last one on references I wanted to talk about was just accuracy. Okay, now this is a Christmas present for me, for those that haven't got it. Ian McGibbon's New Zealand Western Front Campaign. So there's only been 2 books that have covered off the Western Front Campaign, in fact, in this sort of scale. The first one was published in 1920, just after the war, and the second one by Ian. Now you'll appreciate that the thing that I'm loving about this is the quality of the photos that have been represented, and you can just come out, you get a sense of the size of that photo. It's a large one, and then you can zoom in, as I talked about yesterday, the personality. So that young guy there, understanding who he is, what he did, how he's dressed, and how we could represent him in miniature, just phenomenal. I've got a little chap that I'm going to be doing like him, a little machine gunner with that sacking Hessian helmet cover, the bit of chalk on the top from being in the trenches, a sort of slovenly battle dress, bit warm, those dusty, dirty boots. That's the sort of stuff I'm talking about moving. Yesterday I talked about flesh, I talked about soul. The intention of this section was talking about references leading into my next couple of sessions, which are going to be around painting textures and uniforms. So we'll be diving into the uncle, we'll be diving into the figures and to looking at that. Okay, so this last section was just about getting it right. It's about accuracy. And look, that's the point, isn't it, guys? If we're going to do, that's the thing that differentiates us from the fantasy modelers, the historical accuracy. And so, you know, I wanted to give that as a sort of a bridge into my next sessions, the ones from yesterday that I've already done on flesh, the introductory sessions that we've done on setup and wet pellets. So you've got the materials. Now it's about bringing it home and landing it. And that's going to be, you get the character, you get the flesh, you get the soul in the figure, and his face and the hands, which are critical. And I think the second part of that process is then getting what they're wearing, getting the atmosphere of where they are, what happens to their clothing, what happens to their setting. And that's what we'll be looking at next time. So I trust that's been a useful session for you. Today we've talked about references. We've talked about the sense of, you know, for me there's three types of references. There's the ones that inspire you, the things like Bill Horan and Mike Good in that military modelling showcase and Charlie's War. That's inspiration, get you into it. Then there's the one about how you do it. Yeah, that was almost awkward. The techniques one. In terms of techniques, we'll be looking at how you do stuff. You can do it online, you can look at it all here, and touching tangible. So the books by MJ, and in particular the Mr. Black publications. There's a slew of those out there. If you can't find a Mr. Black that you're happy with, you probably haven't looked deep enough, would be my advice. And then the last one, historical reference books, like the Kiwis on the Western Front from Ian McGibbon. Okay, that's it. Before I go, I want to have a quick scroll through, see if there's anybody I've missed. Say hi and bye. Okay. Hi Zach, good to see you, mate. Fantastic. You would have loved seeing, if you have a look back, you'll see the Charlie's War brisket imagery. Some amazing stuff in there. Good to see you, mate. And Stu, nice to have you join there. Sorry, and Jeremy, nice to have you on board. Sorry guys, this is a split video. I had a bit of a connection issue at halfway between. Rob, I trust you got that Mother's Day prezzies, mate. Hey, big call out to all those mothers still having Mother's Day over there. Trust me, the day after isn't bad. It's just not as recognised. Having said that, heard a lovely quote yesterday. If you're only celebrating mothers one day of the year, you're probably not doing it right. Okay, I like that one. Mark, nice to see you, mate. Zach, and yeah, fantastic to hear you, Rob. Great to hear that support. Likewise for Zach, it's well worth looking at, mate. Hi Joe, nice to have you around. And I think that's just, Spencer joined us at the end, mate. This is a bit more talky Q&A type than the actual action. Great to see you. Do have a look at back. There's two parts to this one. And again, I want to say thanks to Phil. Thanks to the guys that supported me on Patreon. I know that's going to be a learning experience. These videos are intros to the detailed ones that I plan to do on Patreon come next month. You guys take care of yourself. Stay safe out there. Remember your mums. Not just today, but every day. Bye for now.